The stars outside shimmered like ice caught in sunlight. Commander Varric Zane stood at the wide glass window of the docking bay, watching the orbit of Altharian Prime below. The planet was covered in soft clouds, glowing with pale blues and greens. Peaceful for now. The shuttle doors behind him hissed open. "Commander Zane, welcome to Unity Spire," said an assistant in a silver uniform. She gave a small bow. Her voice was polite, but tired. Everyone here looked tired. Varric nodded and followed her through the wide corridor. The walls were white and smooth, humming softly. Unity Spire was the pride of the Galactic Council, a floating city built for diplomacy, not war. And yet, Varric could feel tension in the air, like static before a storm. As they walked, he passed delegates from many species. A tall, blue-skinned Trevelyan ambassador nodded respectfully. A group of small, red-eyed Delarians whispered quickly to one another. All eyes seemed to follow him. Humans were not trusted here. Not anymore. They reached the main chamber, an enormous hall with curved walls and a domed ceiling lit by artificial starlight. In the center was a circular platform where negotiations would take place. Around it were seats for each delegation. It was quiet now, but that would change soon. Varric's seat was marked with a glowing Earth emblem. He sat down, alone. The assistant gave him a data tablet. Today's session begins in 1 hour. The overseer will be present. Varric looked up. Kolzer? She hesitated, then nodded. Yes. He arrived early. Of course he did, Varric thought. The Genkari always came prepared. They saw everything as a battlefield. When the assistant left, Varric stared at the empty seats. He remembered the last time he'd seen Kolzer in the middle of the Zeta 9 campaign. Fire, screams, and metal shattering in space. Kolzer had commanded the fleet that destroyed Haven's Reach, a human colony. Thousands dead in minutes. And now they wanted peace. He wasn't sure what peace meant to the Genkari. To Varric, peace was freedom. To them, it might mean control. The doors opened again. A low clicking sound filled the chamber. Heavy steps. Cold air seemed to follow the figure that entered. Overseer Kolzer. He was tall, armored, with long spiked limbs and deep red eyes that glowed in the dim light. He moved to the opposite side of the chamber, his body still and his gaze fixed directly on Varric. They stared at each other. Neither blinked. No words were exchanged. The moment passed, and Kolzer sat. The rest of the council would arrive soon. Varric looked down at the treaty draft on his screen. The terms were steep. Too steep. He clenched his jaw. This wasn't going to be a negotiation. It would be a test, a game of pressure. And someone would break. But it wouldn't be him. The lights in Varric's quarters dimmed as he lay on the narrow bed, staring at the ceiling. Outside his window, the stars drifted past in silence. But inside his mind, war still raged. He closed his eyes. The screams came first, then the explosions. Haven's Reach, 2 years ago. Flames poured from the sky as Genkari ships opened fire on the colony. Civilians ran through smoke-filled streets, caught in the chaos. Varric, in full combat armor, led a squad through collapsing buildings. The air was thick with dust and the sharp, electric smell of plasma fire. "Commander," someone shouted over comms. "They've breached the west wall. We hold the center." Varric yelled back, voice calm under pressure. "Protect the evac pods." But the Genkari didn't stop. Their fighters moved with terrifying speed. Varric watched 2 of his men get torn apart by laser fire before they could scream. He never forgot their faces. He never forgot the moment he saw Overseer Kolzer's flagship in the sky, towering like a god of war, giving no mercy. Back in the present, Varric sat up, sweat on his brow. He ran a hand through his short dark hair and stood. The memories weren't just dreams. They were warnings. The Galactic Council wanted peace, but at what cost? He dressed quickly and left his room. He needed to clear his head. The hallways of Unity Spire were mostly empty. A few clinging drones buzzed past. Varric found himself walking toward the observation deck, a quiet place where ambassadors often went to think. There he saw someone already standing at the window. A woman in long robes with smooth gray skin and soft violet eyes. Ambassador Sarah Nell from the Valari Alliance. Her people were known for their wisdom and neutrality. She looked at him and smiled gently. "You don't sleep well." "No," Varric said. "Not when peace talks feel like a trap." She nodded. "Many here believe you'll agree to the treaty." "I won't sign a surrender," he replied. Sarah turned back to the stars. "The Jankari want control, not peace. You know that. But the council wants quiet. They think if you give in, the rest of us won't have to fight." Varric leaned on the rail beside her. "Quiet isn't peace." "You're right," she said, "but the council doesn't want right. They want stability." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Sarah glanced at him. "They respect you, Varric, but they also fear another war. Don't wait too long to choose your path. The galaxy is watching." Varric nodded. "I know." Later that day, the council chamber filled with delegates. Lights flickered on, voices quieted, and the negotiation session began. Kolzer stood, his voice deep and sharp. "We demand control of the outer human colonies. We offer protection, shared resources, and guaranteed order." Varric rose slowly, voice firm. "You want to rule us. You call it peace, but it's submission." Kolzer tilted his head. "Better to kneel in safety than burn in pride." The chamber went silent. Varric met his gaze. "Then let's see who burns." He sat down. The message was clear. The first cracks had formed. The pressure was rising. The council session had ended hours ago, but the weight of it still pressed on Varric's shoulders. He sat alone in a quiet conference room, dim lights above, and a tablet glowing on the table in front of him. Lines of text scrolled by. Military reports, intercepted transmissions, troop movements. He paused at one line. Zenkari fleet movement detected near Velis 4 and Argon Reach. Both were human border colonies. Peace talks were still happening, but the Zenkari were already preparing for war. Varric leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. He wasn't surprised, but the confirmation hit hard. The Zenkari weren't negotiating. They were stalling for time. The door opened quietly. Ambassador Harlan Miles stepped in. A fellow human, older, with gray in his beard and worry in his eyes. "I heard you requested restricted data access," Miles said. Varric nodded. "I needed to see the truth." Miles sighed and sat across from him. "I know what you're thinking, Varric, but don't make this harder than it has to be." "They're already moving fleets," Varric said. "They've made their choice, and Earth has made ours," Miles said calmly. "We can't afford another war. We barely survived the last one." "At what price?" Varric asked. "How many colonies do we give up before we're not a people anymore?" Miles looked tired. "If we lose another war, there won't be any people left to protect." The room fell silent. Varric stood. "They're expecting us to surrender. The council, the Zenkari, even some of our own." Miles shook his head. "We're not surrendering. We're choosing the smart path." Varric narrowed his eyes. "No, you're choosing fear." He left the room without another word. Back in his quarters, Varric opened the treaty draft again. The terms were unchanged. Control of 3 outer colonies. Joint rule of 2 more. No promise of Zenkari withdrawal from disputed space. It was a slow takeover written in legal language. His hand hovered over the console. Then he opened a secure channel. "Sarah Nell," he said as the call connected. Her calm face appeared on the screen. "Commander, I need your help," he said. "The council trusts you. If I show them proof the Zenkari are lying, can you back me?" She nodded. "I will." "Thank you," Varric said. But even as he ended the call, He knew it wouldn't be enough. Truth didn't matter to those who had already decided peace at any cost. The next morning, the council met again. The chamber was full. Kolzer stood, smooth and confident. "We maintain our terms," he said. "Our fleets offer protection. The human colonies will be safer under our guidance." Varric stepped forward. "I have evidence your fleets are already deployed near the territories you claim to want to share." Kolzer didn't flinch. "We secure our space in advance. It is efficiency. Nothing more." "And if we refuse?" Varric asked. Kolzer's eyes glowed. "Then you refuse protection and risk destruction." Murmurs spread through the room. Council members glanced at each other, uncomfortable. But no one spoke against him. Varric looked at their faces. He saw fear, caution, and silence. No one wanted to provoke the Genkeri. He turned and walked away without a word. Outside the chamber, he paused. He looked at the stars beyond the transparent walls. Lines had been drawn, and some lines, once crossed, could not be taken back. Varric stood in the meditation garden aboard Unity Spire, surrounded by artificial trees and soft light. A stream of water flowed quietly nearby. It was one of the few peaceful places left on the station. But even here, his thoughts refused to rest. He stared at the data tablet in his hands. He had read the treaty draft 5 times now. The words didn't change, but their meaning grew heavier. The Genkeri wanted 5 colonies, 3 under full control, 2 shared, which meant Genkeri oversight of human leaders. They offered trade routes and defense support in return. It sounded like peace, but it felt like chains. Footsteps approached. Varric looked up. Ambassador Sarah Nell stepped beside him, holding a small cup of clear tea. "You've been quiet since the last session." "I said what needed to be said," Varric replied. "No one listened." Sarah sipped her tea. "They heard you, but they're afraid. Fear makes people blind. I can't protect our people with words alone," he said. "And if I refuse the treaty, I risk starting a war." Sarah looked at him. "And if you accept it, you surrender the freedom you fought to defend." Varric didn't answer. He sat on a bench beside the stream. "I watched havens reach fall," he said quietly. "I gave the order to evacuate. I watched families scream while ships burned. And now they want me to hand over more colonies to those same hands." Sarah placed a hand on his shoulder. "You already know the answer. You're just waiting for someone else to say it first." Varric looked at her. "Then I'll be the one to say it." That night, in his quarters, Varric pulled up the treaty one last time. The words glowed softly on the screen. He tapped to open an edit window. Line by line, he rewrote the terms. No Genkeri military presence in human space. Full sovereignty over the outer colonies. Mutual defense clauses that required equality, not dominance. A council task force to monitor the treaty's fairness. It was bold. Risky. The Genkeri would never accept it. But it was fair. And it was human. When he finished, he saved the new draft and sent it to the council. Then he leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. No fear, no doubt. He had made his choice. The next morning, the council chamber was full again. Delegates murmured as they read the new proposal. Kolzer arrived late, his long limbs moving with slow confidence. He read the new terms with stillness. Then he looked up, his voice calm and sharp. "These terms insult our offer. They deny the sacrifice we make to maintain order." Varric stood. "These terms reflect peace, not domination." "You leave no room for compromise," Kolzer said. "You left no room for trust," Varric replied. The room fell silent. Everyone waited. Then Kolzer spoke one word: unacceptable. He placed the tablet on the table and walked out. The message was clear. War or surrender. That was the choice. Varric remained standing, alone at the center of the room. His proposal had cracked the illusion of peace. Now, the truth stood in the open. The final negotiation session began with a heavy silence. The council chamber was packed. Delegates from all across the galaxy sat in rows, watching. Some whispered among themselves. Others stared straight ahead, unreadable. Varric Zane stood alone at the center table. He wore his black ambassador's coat, simple but sharp. His face was calm, but inside, he was ready for the storm. A chime echoed through the room. The session had officially begun. Overseer Kolzer entered through the eastern gate. His armored limbs clanked softly with each step. He moved like a predator, controlled and deliberate. He took his seat across from Varric, his red eyes glowing. Councillor Marin, a thin, silver-skinned elder from the Draxan Republic, raised her hand. This session will determine the final decision between the Human Alliance and the Zenkuri Dominion. Varric stood and cleared his throat. I've submitted a revised treaty, one built on equality, not fear, one that protects every side without taking from any. We are here to build peace, not trade freedom for safety. Some heads nodded. Kolzer responded without standing. The human's proposal is weak. He offers balance when balance does not exist. The Zenkuri are stronger. We are more disciplined. Peace must reflect power. His voice was cold and clear. Councillor Marin looked to Varric. Do you have anything else to add before the final vote? Varric looked around the room. Eyes met his. Some hopeful, some wary, a few indifferent. He took a breath. Peace is not about who is stronger, he said. It's about respect. If we sign this treaty as it was written by the Zenkuri, we lose who we are. Our colonies, our choices, our voice. That is not peace. That is quiet slavery. Kolzer stood now, towering over the others. Then your kind chooses chaos, he hissed, and chaos will be returned to you in full. Varric looked him in the eye. We choose freedom, even if it means war. The room went still. No one moved. No one spoke. Then, slowly, Varric removed the metal ambassador badge from his coat. He placed it on the table. I will not sign. The Human Alliance will not surrender. He turned and walked away. Behind him, a few gasps, a few murmurs, but no one stopped him. The other human delegates followed, one by one, in silence. Kolzer remained where he stood, unmoving. As the humans exited the chamber, the council's unity cracked like glass. For the first time in decades, peace had been refused. The walk was slow, but full of purpose. Outside the chamber, Varric paused. He looked back once, just once, and then kept walking. The news spread across the galaxy in hours. Humans walk away from peak table, council in shock. Zenkuri warn of consequences. Treaty collapses, war likely. On the bridge of the Human Alliance command vessel Resolute, Commander Varric Zane stood by the main display screen. Dozens of messages came through. Support from some colonies, fear from others. Some praised him. Others accused him of risking everything. He stayed silent. Captain Lena Rowe entered the bridge. She walked over to him, holding a datapad. Defense fleets are mobilizing, she said. Earth Command confirmed. Colonies are bracing for retaliation. Varric nodded slowly. What about Zenkuri movement? Scouts report 4 fleets near Argon Reach. They haven't attacked yet, but they're in position. Varric stared at the screen, where small dots marked fleets across human space, red and blue, Zenkuri and human. So close, one wrong move, and everything would burn. He turned to Lena. Order the border colonies to stand by. No one fires unless fired upon. She gave a short nod and left to carry out the command. Later, alone in his quarters, Varric recorded a message. It was short, direct, meant for all human colonies and allies across the galaxy. This is Commander Varric Zane. I walked away from the treaty because it would have cost us everything we are. The Zenkuri offered order, but only on their terms. We do not accept that. We want peace, but not at the cost of our freedom. He paused, then finished with quiet strength. We are not the aggressors, but we will not kneel. Be ready. Stand strong. We fight for our future." He ended the recording and sent it. Back on Unity Spire, the council was in chaos. Delegates argued. Sides formed. Some blamed the humans. Others quietly applauded their decision. Sarah Nell watched the arguments from the observation deck. She turned to Counselor Marin. "You see it now," Sarah said. "Peace built on fear does not last." Marin sighed. "And now we face the storm." On the far side of the galaxy, in Genkari space, Overseer Kolzer stood aboard his flagship. His second-in-command approached. "Shall we strike, Overseer?" the officer asked. Kolzer looked out at the stars. His claws tapped slowly on the metal rail. "Not yet," he said. "Let them prepare. Let them fear. Then we remind them why they were right to kneel." On Earth, in the Grand Hall of Command, humans lit their planetary defense grids. Ships launched from dry docks. Fighters flew in formation. It had begun. Not with a battle. Not with a gunshot. But with a step. A choice. One man standing, then walking away. And behind him, a people ready to follow.